After you've created rollover graphics, as I showed you how to do in the preceding movie, the next step is to optimize those graphics for the web, which is what I'll show you how to do here. To recap what I've done so far, I started with a simple navigation bar with each button on a separate layer in the Layers panel. I sliced the navigation bar so that the buttons in their various states would be saved out as individual graphics. I set up the appearance of all the buttons in their normal rollover state by applying a white striped style from the Styles panel to each button. Then I captured that look as a layer comp, the normal layer comp here in the Layer Comps panel. Then I changed the appearance of the buttons, giving each one a darker striped style from the Styles panel. And I captured that look as another layer comp, the Overlayer comp, which I'll show you by clicking in the blank field to the left of that layer comp. So that's what I've already done. I'll pick up here by naming each one of the button slices. And this is important because the graphic files that will be generated from these slices will get their file names from the slice names that I'm about to enter. I'm going to go to the toolbox and select the Slice Select tool. And then I'll go to the document and I'm going to click on the first of the button slices, the slice around the Services button. On a Mac, I'll hold the Control key and click on that button. On a PC, I'll right-click on that button. And that brings up this menu from which I'll choose Edit Slice Options. That opens the Slice Options dialog box. You may remember that in an earlier movie, I showed you that you can also open this dialog box from this icon here in the Options bar for the Slice Select tool. In the Slice Options dialog box, I'll go to the name field and I'm going to type a more meaningful name for this slice. I'm going to call this Services Button. And I'll be sure not to leave blank spaces or use special characters when I'm naming this slice because this is going to become a file name. And then I'll click OK. I'll do the same with each of the other button slices. This one will be the Specials button. This the Locations button. And this the About button. When I made the slices around each of the buttons, Photoshop automatically created some auto slices to fill in the gaps. I could name those as well, but I'm not going to do that because I'm only going to be using the graphics that are generated from these button slices when I create my final navigation bar. Now that the slices around the buttons are named, my next step will be to optimize both states of all the buttons in a web-ready format using Save for Web and Devices. I'll start by optimizing the overstate of all the buttons. In the Layer Comps panel, I'll make sure that I have the overstate selected, and then I'll go up to the File menu, and I'll choose Save for Web and Devices. Here I'm going to get the Hand tool and just click and drag so I can see all the buttons. I'll go to the toolbox and I'll get the Slice Select tool, and I'm going to click on the first of the button slices, hold down the Shift key as I click on the other button slices to select them all. Before I start optimizing, I'd like to make the slices invisible temporarily so that I can actually see the edges of the buttons. So I'll go to the Show Hide Slices icon here in the toolbox, and I'll click that to hide the slices, but I still have all 4 button slices selected. So whatever optimization settings that I choose over on the right will affect all 4 button slices. Because the buttons are made up primarily of solid colors, they'll probably optimize best in the GIF or PNG format. I'm going to leave format set to GIF here. The number of colors in each GIF is currently set to 32. I'm going to see how these buttons look with fewer colors, so I'll change that to 16. And I see that the buttons still look pretty good. If I go down to 8 colors, you can see that the buttons are degraded in appearance. So that's not acceptable. I'll set the colors back to 16. And the file size for all 4 buttons is only 12.58 kilobytes. I can live with that, so I'm going to accept those optimization settings. I'll show the slices again by clicking the Show Hide Slices button. I could come in and optimize the auto slices around the button slices, but I'm not going to bother because I'm not going to be using the graphics generated by the auto slices in my final navigation bar. At this point, if I were saving regular graphics rather than rollover graphics, I'd go down and click the Save button. But I don't want to do that here, because if I do, Save for Web will generate just one graphic for each button slice. In this case, the darker striped graphic for the overstate of each button, but there wouldn't be any graphics for the white striped normal state version of each button. So rather than click Save, I'm going to click Done. That causes Photoshop to remember my optimization settings for the overstate graphics and takes me out of the Save for Web window and back into Photoshop. Now I want to check how my buttons look with those optimization settings in the normal state. So I'll go to the Layer Comps panel and I'll cycle to the normal state by clicking in the blank field to the left of the normal layer comps. And now each button has the white striped appearance. Again, I'll go into the Save for Web and Devices window. I'll get the Hand tool and I'll move over so I can see all 4 buttons. I'll get the Slice Select tool. I'll click on all 4 slices holding down the Shift key, and I'm going to hide the slices temporarily by clicking the Show Hide Slices icon. With only 16 colors in a GIF, the normal state of these buttons doesn't look great. I see that the edges of the buttons look like they're degrading a bit. So I'd like to see how the buttons look with more colors. I'll go to the Colors field and I'll change that from 16 to 32. And I think that makes the edges of these buttons smoother. The file size is still pretty low, only 13.79 kilobytes, so I'm going to go with these settings, keeping in mind that they're going to affect both states of the button, the darker over state and the lighter normal state. Now that I'm done optimizing, I'd like to save out some rollover graphics. However, again, I don't want to click the Save button because if I did that, Photoshop would save the buttons only in their normal state. In other words, I would get only one version of each of the buttons, the white striped version. So I'm going to click Done, causing Photoshop to remember these optimization settings and take me out of the Save for Web window and back to Photoshop. Now, unfortunately, there's no way built into Photoshop to export multiple rollover buttons from each one of these slices. But that's okay, because knowing that there is no way to do that in Photoshop CS5, Lynda.com has gotten together with a scripting expert, Trevor Morris, to create a special script that will do that automatically for you. And we're making that script available to all of you for free. In the next movie, I'm going to show you how to find that special script, how to install it in your copy of Photoshop, and how to use it to export rollover graphics.